Okay.
All right, I believe we
I'll let
are
you know
live.
it's setting up. So I'll tell you exactly. It's going to be in about.
And we're live. Welcome to the Staying Sane podcast, where myself, Cassandra McLean, and my colleague Albert Nierenberg discuss how to stay sane in this insane world. And today, our topic, so valuable, so important, is laughter, the therapeutic value of laughter, and really giving some time and attention to consider the depth of what it is to laugh and how it affects not only your conscious mind, but your subconscious and your body. Should convince you by the end of this episode, you're going to want to be laughing more and doing everything that you can to bring more laughter and joy and humor into your life for your own mental health and physical health. Isn't that
Well
right,
said.
Albert? We're
That is.
we're very lucky to have Albert on this topic because you are an official laughologist.
Thank you. Yeah, no. It's funny. I often forget that I do that. That's one of my big angles. Like I think that laughter is incredibly valuable, and so maybe I should just throw in why. Like because I think what's funny is that the average person might think, no one's against laughter. You rarely hear about somebody say like I object to laughing. It's against my religion or something like that. But what is interesting is that we as adults, I think there's a phenomena and like almost everywhere where as you enter the workforce or become more serious in life, you tend to lose your laughter. There's actually a statistic which is not real. I should just point out, but it's a statistic that says that children laugh like a certain amount of times every day, maybe 60 times a day, and then adults are like a fraction of that. And this is pointed out as like that's kind of what's wrong with humanity. Now I should point out because we researched that actual study and it doesn't exist. Somebody just made it up, but it doesn't really matter because we all know it's sort of true.
Yeah. The
Um,
numbers are invented, but the core message is dead on. And
yes.
we know it. I mean, just watch a kid for 5 minutes by themselves and they're just like, ha ha ha, ha.
And what's interesting, what you just demonstrated is something that I've observed. There's sort of these interest, there's studies on how toddlers laugh and how they're different from way adults laugh. So, for example, adults, we need to wait until something is funny and then we'll laugh. So, oh, that's, you said something funny and I'm like, ha ha ha. But toddlers actually lead with laughter. They actually sort of go through their lives as you'd sort of demonstrated, going like, "I'm in a playground, ha ha ha! I'm having
Yeah.
fun," and they're leading with the laughter while they kind of look for more laughter. And that's a really interesting process. Again, something that we have lost as adults. We tend not to do that
Well,
because we.
speak for yourself because I fully identify with the toddler you just described. In fact, with my hot mic on, you just caught me when I stepped outside and I think I'm out of hearing range. And I'm like, cat. I know exactly what I actually said. What I actually said was it's my tiki tiki song, which is tiki tiki tiki. It's just a little song that came out of me one day a few years ago, and my ex-husband was like, "I know when you're happy because you sing your tiki tiki song," and I didn't even know I
Interesting.
was doing it. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So
I,
you
and
heard
I'm
my
going to
tiki
say,
tiki song.
from a comedy perspective, it could be much worse. You know that there's that famous scene, and it's happened to me in I think The Naked Gun, where Leslie Nielsen, the Queen, is visiting. Leslie Nielsen has his mic on. He makes an introductory speech, and then he goes to the bathroom, and then everybody in the whole place hears like there's 500 people there or so him going to the washroom and singing his song. He sings a song while he's pissing in the toilet, but it's broadcast to the whole event. And anyways, it's quite funny. But the truth is that these days, with everybody being wired up with wireless mics, you wouldn't believe how often that actually really
I
happens.
would believe it, but let's get back. Uh, let's get back that while I made a point to say, hey, I'm not included in this proverbial we as adults, blah, blah, blah. Yes, the vast majority of adults, it's something that has happened unconsciously. You didn't decide when you were in college, you know what, those laughing days of my childhood, that's immature. I'm just going to be straight faced and serious. And if you want to make me laugh, you better earn it because I'm just tightened up like a tomb. nobody like consciously decided that in their teens or adolescence, or it just sort of sneaks up on you. And then you
That's
realize,
right.
I'm not really like, when is the last time I laughed? Like
Yeah.
really,
When
like
is the last time?
a hearty belly laugh, a good knee slapper. What's it take?
Yeah, ask yourself that question. When is the last time that you laughed? When is it? And I think a lot of people would be surprised when they realize I haven't had a good laugh in a little while, which is, I think, and by the way, can happen to absolutely anyone. When people hear that, they get a little offended. I know I'm not such a serious person, but in fact, even when I'm working as a laughologist, I sometimes look at my life and I go, I didn't laugh today, like until this moment. And so it happens to any, it can really happen to anyone. Uh, and it's intriguing if I can throw in because the science, there is new science. I think people still think one of the big biases that we were taught in school is that laughter is trivial, meaning it's some trivial thing that kids do to, distract from the important lesson that we're learning. And that idea is deep in our culture that laughter is a trivial behavior and talking is a serious behavior. And it's actually reflected in some really interesting research that shows that we never put laughter before speech. So let me explain what I mean. If you and I are talking about something and we say it's, oh, that's interesting and that's funny, then we might go, oh, that's kind of a hilarious thing. Ha 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 ha. So the laughter comes after the talking, and it shows the submissive role that laughter was put in relationship to human dialogue. You never go, we never just start a conversation by going, oh,
That would be
I'm
insane.
laughing. What's that?
That would be insane.
Right. Or
I'm a
it,
very open-minded person and I always see the best in people. I meditate on it. I choose to be that way. If somebody just came up to me, no greeting, no hello, nothing, and just went, I would be, I would be like,
except except it happens with good friends. Good friends will be like when they see each other, they might just laugh, but that's exceptional. But my point is that that one theory is, so let me give you like a very thumbnail history of the relationship between laughter and play and speech. One theory is that before mammals could laugh, all they could do was basically stare. So animals could. So the theory is that when mammals started to play, we needed a signal to show playfulness, and that signal is a bit like a panting sound, like this. Monkeys go, dogs go, and we vocalized it into ha 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 ha. And when we do that, we're saying, oh, I want to play with you, not fight with you. And
mm-hmm.
before that, there was no way of really being clear about it. But once laughter opened the door to play, it opened the door to everything else: playfulness, language, sports, having fun. That's all laughter in a way. But language, because it was so powerful and so dominant, it then colonized laughter and put it as this trivial appendage add-on to communication. So now we
Mm.
talk very seriously and we are very formal about communicating through language. And then laughter is this little accessory that we use at the end of a point, ha ha ha. And that one of the reasons, the results of that is that if life becomes more serious and you become more linguistic, meaning you're more obsessed with all the things you want to say and do, then laughter becomes increasingly sort of forgotten and goes down the totem pole of value. I hope that makes
Mm.
sense.
Well, there's a few that makes great sense. And there, I have three detours I want to go down right now. And the one I'm choosing is that you just said, oh, shit, what did you just say? You said you identified laughter as a value, and I think that that is part of my intention of this episode, or what I'm contributing to our listeners, is an invitation to make a conscious choice that laughing is a value that you hold and are committed to. I've made that choice. I know that you've made that choice. When you and I first met 2 years ago at the HypnoThoughts Live conference in Vegas, you were doing hypnotic laughter for people in one of the
Oh yeah.
rooms.
Yeah, that's right.
And then there was a woman, and do you remember this woman? She was filming little clips of the professionals there for whatever it was. And she filmed me because I was sharing with her my philosophy of what I call being generous with your laughter. And I think this is
Mm.
one of the best philosophies I have that I want everybody
Mm.
to know about, which is being generous is a beautiful thing to be. If you don't have lots and lots of money, or excess or surplus money, it's hard to be generous with your money, but you can still be a generous person. And there are many things that cost us nothing that we can be generous with that are priceless. Your presence, your kindness, good listening. You can be generous with these things. To be generous with your laughter is even better because everybody
Yes.
wins. You
Yes.
win just as much as
Yes.
the other person. And
Yes.
this is something I developed as a woman because men like to make women laugh. That's an important thing. Like if a man makes a woman laugh, he feels so good.
Yeah.
And so I've been in the past, I might have said victimized by bad jokes, right? Like I'm just like, I'm held hostage. Here's this man. He's trying to be funny, but he's not. Now, typically what many people do in a circumstance like this doesn't have to be man and woman, right? But somebody makes a joke, it's a bad joke. Too many people will kind of punish them for even trying, right? You
Right.
make kind of a
Right.
face like, ugh, what are you,
Yes.
stupid? That was a dumb thing to say. Now I'm going to
Yeah.
walk away from you and shame
Yes.
you with my
Yes.
disgust that you even tried to be funny. I think
Yes.
that's a form of cruelty. They tried to be funny. And if it's an insulting, offensive, racist joke, for example, no, I'm not going to laugh at that. But if it's just like, hey, I tried and I'm not that funny of a person, I choose to laugh. I call it being generous with my laughter because
Yeah.
it makes them feel good. It encourages keep trying, keep exercising the desire to be a funny person because funny is happy. Laughter makes us happy.
Can I even
So
throw? Go ahead.
and
Finish your
but
point.
just to finish the thought is that I benefit more than anybody else because I'm laughing more. So it makes me feel more bonded with people. If you try to make a joke and it's medium level funny, I could choose to be like, eh, or I can just indulge you. And then we're both laughing together and our hearts are open and we feel bonded. And I'm getting that oxytocin, you're getting that. The world is a brighter place. That's what simply laughing more often, choosing, all right, I'm going to throw this dog a bone. Let's just have a laugh. It literally makes the world a better place.
I actually love your theory of be generous with your laughter, and I think there's more to it. I think just it's just sort of a principle. There's a bit of a fake it till you make it. You're starting a conversation with somebody, and maybe it's awkward and tense, and then somebody tells like a joke, and you could be there and you could go, let me analyze that. Was that joke actually an effective use of humor? Well, if you do that, you're first of all you're in a kind of intellectual state, and but if you actually let go and go, I'm going to be generous with my laughter, and so I see your effort, and I know you're trying, and you know what happens then, and this we then experience the second stage of the effect, which is that laughter has the effect to break the ice. If we laugh together, even though, okay, we're not sure if the joke was funny, it's just showing what, as you pointed out, the open-hearted quality. I'm open to connecting with you. I'm not there going, I'm not judging your humor if it reaches my highest standards. And there's another thing that shows, I think there were studies done about people who laugh more. It's funny that you say that it's generosity of laughter, but people who laugh more tend to be more generous. And there's even an example of this, which is it's stereotyped in our culture. There are three official or common sounds for laughter. They are ha ha ha, he, which is the smiling laugh when you go he, tries to smile more. You're right. And then there's ho ho ho. Ho 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 is both a common laugh that everybody does to some extent, but it's also stereotyped as is ho 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 as in
Jolly Saint Nick.
right, who is the ultimate symbol of generosity.
Joy and generosity. Oh, that's so true. Yeah.
So the ho ho ho
Oh,
laugh
that's beautiful.
is a generous laugh. And by the way, it's funny I should mention this because we just had the World Laughing Championship, and it's interesting that the guy who won the World Laughing Champions, Kelly Podlubny, is always asked for his origin story, and his origin story is that his dad was happened to be a very overweight guy, suffered with weight problems, and but because he was jolly and he happened to have a white beard, he would be cast, people would say, hey, you be the Santa Claus, you be the company Santa Claus. And he became, over time he became Santa Claus, meaning he was so good at it that they're like, you kind of are Santa Claus. And then Kelly grew up with his dad as Santa Claus, and that's how he looked up to him, even though his weight problems, like people made fun of his dad for being a fat guy. He saw the beauty later in life, appreciated that his dad was so truly jolly and generous. And then now, years later, unfortunately his dad died, but now he becomes the world laughing champion.
That's
Thank,
amazing.
yeah, thanks to his dad. Um, so yeah,
That is
generosity
so
of laughter is a
beautiful.
really, I totally know what you mean because I laugh at bad jokes and or I laugh at, I try to laugh easily.
Yes.
I try to be easy with my laughter. And you might ask, well, when you make this argument, you might say, well, are people really against this? And I would say, oh yeah, they are.
Oh,
So
yeah, they are.
well, there's a really good example in Eastern Europe. In Eastern Europe, even though I wouldn't say Eastern Europeans are any more grumpy than we are, there's a cultural bias against public laughter. It's well known that if you are seen laughing publicly, like on the street, it's often equated with stupidity. People
I've
think that,
read about this
yeah,
in Russia, even
and
smiling.
and that's why when you walk down a street in Russia or Ukraine or places like that, there's a dourness, there's an apparent dourness because Russians are not actually necessarily dour. I know this because they contend they're the best sometimes in the World Laughing Championship. Russians are really, really good. They have a private, cheerful, laughing life.
Mhm.
Um, there is absolutely a bias against being too open with your laugh, and I think that it should be challenged for a number of reasons. But yeah, you're onto something with this generosity of laughter business.
And the choice of valuing, to say one of my values, one of my guiding values, who I am in the world interpersonally with others, is you can count on me for a laugh. And
That's
if you're
right.
not offering a reason to laugh, I'll give you 45 of them. And if
Yeah.
you don't laugh at my jokes, I don't even care. I will laugh at my own jokes and be just fine. And if you're sitting there like, I'll just, hey, look, it was great to meet you. I really got to run. And I'll just go have a joyful time with my cat. He's never once laughed at my jokes, but I choose to believe that he thinks I'm funny anyway. It's enough. So the next point I want to have you speak to, which you shared when we were preparing for this episode, you said laughter is your birthright.
Yeah. So what we're sort of saying, and I think it also applies to hypnotherapy because that I think that people underestimate it. One of the things people think about hypnotherapy is they think it's a really like serious business, and it can be when
It can
you're
be.
dealing with serious problems. But I often think the goal of and if you hang out with good hypnotherapists, they're often laughy, cheerful people, and there are even people like, for example, like Mike Mandel, who really believe that you should be comical in your approach. Not like it doesn't mean like somebody comes to you with a really serious problem, you start laughing, but it does mean that you're kind of aiming towards life should be a joyful thing. And when you are healing, part of it is laughter. Laughter is part of one of the goals. But sorry, where were we going this? Your question was
Laughter
birthright.
is a birthright. Mm-hmm.
So I made a documentary called Laughology, and the reason I made the documentary is really a weird explanation, but when my I had a child, so when I had a daughter, it was in peculiar circumstances. One is that my father had recently died, which was, I guess, sad, but it happens. And my partner's mother had died previously, but then literally in the middle of her pregnancy, her father was diagnosed with leukemia, and then he dies like right in the middle of her pregnancy. And so she was both sad, shocked, stressed. And then there was like this peculiar math where when the child was born, there's this thing you don't think about that much maybe until you have kids. But when we thought, well, who's going to be sort of part of this? So normally it would be like the mums come over or the families come to see the kid. And we were like, oh, geez, we suddenly realized, oh, all our parents have died. And so this was this extra sad factor. And I remember the first month of the child's birth, and this is just a reality of newborns. Newborns actually do not laugh. They are not cheerful. They often can't see. they're coping with trying to breastfeed and all these other things. But then there's this miraculous moment that I found out. This was the reason why I got the film made, that has been culturally underestimated. Every baby, regardless of culture, civilization, or language, at approximately 40 days to 80 days, somewhere in there because it changes, starts laughing. And they start laughing without, they're not modeling on their parents. And that was obvious to us because as a couple, we recognized that we were going through a kind of serious stage, with the loss of our parents and the trauma of it, that we weren't particularly cheerful. Suddenly the baby started to laugh. And we recognized it did not come from us.
Because you
Then I
were
did the research.
mourning.
It is an innate behavior, and it's a really interesting one because in anthropology, I'm not an expert in anthropology, but before they used to try to say that some cultures do this, other cultures do that. These are cultural phenomena. But what innate laughter proves is that all humans have this fundamental innate behavior that is universal. You can't say otherwise. You can't say, no, um, indigenous Australians do not laugh. No, they laugh. Everybody laughs. And there is difference in humor. So there are cultures that have no sense of humor. It's actually been studied. But there are no cultures that do not laugh. So it is our birthright, as you point out. We are born, in a sense, laughing. And the challenge in life is to not lose it. Don't lose your laugh, because on the other end, laughter is a very quick de-stressing behavior for a number of reasons that people don't often know.
For one,
But go
give us
ahead.
that statistic about cortisol.
So one is that laughter there's been a study. Fortunately, the guy who did it, I think, just recently passed away, but I think it was Loma Linda University, showed that when people laugh, they can metabolize cortisol very, very quickly. So, if you're having a really stressful day and you sense like your stress hormones are high, it's a good idea to laugh if you can, simply because it will work faster than maybe like a meditation exercise or whatever you might do. Laughter really works. But there's a second way that it works. I think it creates dissociation in a positive way. So famously, the woman who developed laughter therapy, excuse me, Annette Goodhart, worked with people who were living with cancer. And she would do the same exercise. And when you hear it for the first time, it's often shocking. She would take people who have like terminal cancer or ovarian cancer, or a very serious cancer diagnosis, and she would say to them, "Tell me your diagnosis," and then laugh. So the people would go, "I have ovarian cancer," and then they would go, and you would hear that, and you'd be like, "My God!" First of all, you'd be like, "You shouldn't do that," but then you'd realize the beauty of it, because the person was able to just create this kind of distance. They are not ovarian cancer. They might be contending with ovarian cancer, and by laughing, it creates this distance. Sorry, go ahead.
I would argue that it's even broader than that. I think it's allowing your sense of self to identify with your higher soul, with your spirit. And from a spiritual perspective, I could go down this rabbit hole real deep, but I'll try to keep it, as you said, a thumbnail version. From a spiritual perspective, I'm not a human being with some spiritual part of my life. I'm a spiritual entity. I am a spirit, and I'm living a human experience. And from the spiritual perspective, there's a reason that I'm having this human experience. It's to clear my karma. It's to learn some lessons. It's to improve my it's not just to improve, it's ultimately to rejoin with the oneness of God and the universe, and to break through the illusion of samsara and the material world and all the things that we think are real but actually are not. But we are really like eyeballs glued to the screen of like, no, my life is my body, and my life is my job and my money and my house, and that's who I am. And then it takes, this work, part of which is a dissociation in a good way, as you called it, that observer experience of like, just sit and like observe your life, and you realize, I'm not this, I'm experiencing this. When you can say, I have ovarian cancer, You can be the soul laughing at, oh, what's the next trial or tribulation of this human existence for me to pass through? Now I'm identifying with this. Why? Because I'm a happy laughing person. Here I am. Dad is dead, best friend is dead, husband left, has not even shown back. Okay, we're divorced now, but like my fucking dad died, dude. You were my spouse. Could you show up for me like a little bit or care somewhat? Nah, he's just living his life. That's a huge disappointment that I'm dealing with presently. I keep
Mm,
thinking like, wow, you did nothing for me. I get
mm,
that we're divorced, but we had a serious bond. You knew my dad. My dad loved you like a son. And he
mm,
died, and you don't even mail me a card or ask. It's like nothing.
mm.
I have to laugh about it. As a
Yeah.
spirit, as a spirit who's me personally, Cassandra McLean, I'm very, very much all about my spiritual journey. And I'm just on the enlightenment path. And everything that I experience in my material world, I have to remind myself over and over again, this is the material with which I am evolving my spirit. I'm choosing to, okay, this is what I've been dealt. These are the hands I've been dealt. These hands. This is the hand I've been dealt. It's like death, death, abandonment, and divorce in a short period of time. And then I could, list other things that would also curry some sense of like, oh man, poor Cassandra. But that's from a human plane. From a spiritual perspective, if you choose to look for a higher perspective, okay, if I can choose to rise to the occasion, like the trials of Job, and Job is just like, I believe in God. And as his like, leprosy is affecting his kids are dying. Like it's like the worst thing that could ever happen. But see how we laugh because that is like that's like passing the test that lets you skip and just here's your professor emeritus. You don't even have to get your PhD. You can just be professor emeritus because you've done such an incredible job with your life work. We're just going to give you the PhD anyway. That's how I choose to interpret that. And when you say that, oh, they did this research and had somebody say that I have breast tumors and just laugh about it, it lets you be the spirit and go, oh, haha, this is what I have to do now. I have to do this.
I would add another thing too. What it also does is that if you look at times in anyone's life or things that are difficult, by definition, and test this on yourself, bad situations, oppressive situations, are tight. It's like you're in a corner. Like, and that's a bit what a cancer diagnosis is. You're in a tight corner, and there doesn't seem like maybe there seems like a limited amount of options. But what's interesting is when you laugh, you create space. There's this space
Mm.
of, oh, there's another way of looking at this. There's other, life is bigger and even the spiritual angle is there too because now I'm aligned with these broader energies. So many people have had cancer, so many people have lived and died, and that I don't have to look at it as my tight spaced me and my issue. And we experience this, of course, when people come to you for hypnotherapy. There's this issue about identifying with the condition, where people say, I am a person that I have anxiety. And it's a similar idea. They've often painted themselves into a corner and they feel like they only look at it from one point of view. I'm the anxiety person who's having all these conditions. And then when you laugh, I think you'd say, well, why does that happen? Because laughter is like a big universal. All of us, even mammals, we all laugh. When you laugh with the ancestors, so to speak, it's a big spirit laughing.
I love
And
that.
when you're separate from it, it's like you're all alone in your corner with your condition, not laughing.
Mm. I love that.
Um, and so being generous with your laughter. And by the way, I have some tips. Like some people might be asking, like, well, how does one become generous with their laughter? Sorry, go ahead.
I wanna speak to something you said about creating
Yeah.
spaciousness,
Yeah.
which is the again, here we are as hypnotists and hypnotherapists talking about laughter. How does it affect you subconsciously? Your conscious mind might have ideas about laughing or whatever, but this is so primal, it's so deep, it's a natural birthright, not just to you but to other mammals, and it's a defining quality of what it is to be human is to laugh. It's going
Can I
to
throw?
affect you much, much sub The conscious. Yes, what would you like to add?
Can I even throw in one other key? It's an interesting way to look at it. Before mammals started laughing, this world was dominated by reptiles, and
Mm.
reptiles don't laugh. There's some debate about that, but I'm pretty sure they don't laugh. Some people say they don't play. There are some little exceptions, but so you have this austere mechanical world of crocodiles, and then
Cold-blooded.
cold-blooded, and then along come these warm-blooded creatures who discover essentially play. You cannot get to play without laughter. Laughter is the signal that opens the door. And so that is why I
Mm.
say laughter is the greatest revolution ever happened on the planet, because before that you had overly serious reptile energy, and that war still
And
goes
some
on.
people still do. Exactly.
Yeah, it's still here. Yeah.
Beautiful. So wonderful. I love what you just said. What I was wanting to say, and we're having just a beautiful conversation here, but that spaciousness and looking from the cellular level, like deeply in your body. When you laugh, you're shaking a little bit, even if it's just here, even if it's just and it kind of localizes into the throat, that's fine. But a real hearty laugh where you're at a comedy show, you're going for it, you're slapping your knee, your belly's jiggling, you're shaking. And that's breaking up any of that contraction, any of what's getting hardened. You had said earlier that a cardiologist found that people who laughed more had relaxed, hardened arteries. What was the stat there?
So there's some very serious research out of the University of Maryland. You can look it up, which basically said that seriousness, which is the tendency not to laugh and to also feel that your life is a form of crisis, that you're moving through the world as a kind of continual crisis,
Mm-hmm.
that actually creates heart disease to the point where the cardiologist I interviewed said I could diagnose people with seriousness. I'd say you need to lighten up, and it's not just because you're no fun; it's because you're actually hardening your arteries. And the idea is that when you have these cortisol responses, like
You're
getting upset,
getting denser and denser and denser
that's
and more contracted.
that's right. It's the behavior which hardens arteries. Now, I wouldn't worry that if you have one stress episode, it happens right away, but over the course of a life, and so the answer, and literally when you laugh, the physiology is very exact. You dilate, it's not just the arteries, but you dilate the small blood vessels. That's why people sometimes get this complexion change when they laugh too. The small blood vessels are opening up. And it's like there's all these things like, yes, shaking might release stress and even trauma, but also the opening of the small blood vessels is just you fighting heart disease when you laugh. Um, so exactly.
Metabolizing cortisol. Like if there's one takeaway that our listeners get from this episode, remember that. When you laugh, you're metabolizing cortisol, you're metabolizing your stress hormones, you're breaking down stress, literally.
That's right. And I would even take it a step further. If you look at, I think that if you watch professional sports, a lot of people do, you'll notice something interesting. Like, well, actually, you won't notice it because it's invisible, but if you look for it, you will see it. When you see people win, when they win, so particularly this happens in hockey, but you're going to see it now in baseball. When people win and they
Are you talking
jump,
about the players or are you talking about the spectators?
players,
Okay.
when the players win and they jump all over each other, watch what they are doing. They're actually laughing. They may not be laughing like, ha ha ha, this is a big joke, but they are smiling and cheering and laughing together.
Mm-hmm. The
Um, and
spectators are as well.
and that's why spectators are well, and that laughing also connects to victory in life. You
Yeah.
laugh when you win,
Yeah.
and there's a theory too that maybe you should laugh more simply because you prime your body to create more of those, or you to create more of those states, so that you're gonna laugh more.
Yeah. So this is an important pivotal moment in the conversation to address someone who may be listening who's like, well, yeah, I don't laugh that much. Like, how do I just start laughing? And the reality is it's going to feel awkward. If
Yeah.
you're someone who isn't so naturally joyful or who hasn't been cultivating this for years or months or even weeks, it's like you got to just push through it. It's like doing
Right.
anything else. It's like at
Right.
first you might be
Right.
bad at it, which you can't be bad at it, but it might feel like this is dumb. This is, what am I supposed to make myself laugh? Ha ha. That's, it's, yes, there are these laughing festivals where people just get together and you just start ha 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 ha. There's
Yeah.
no joke. There's no punchline. There's no
Yeah.
joke. There's no comedian. It's just people just go into a group and just start making these sounds and smiling and going ha 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 ha. And then something takes over and it becomes, people are really having massive physiological responses. Tears are rolling down the street. They're laughing harder than they've ever. There's never been a joke told. There's no reason, but the reason is choosing it. And you
I
have
was
to choose. You have to choose.
It's funny. I would throw in one other thing that I've observed just by doing. Sometimes I'm hired. I've been hired to do crazy like border guards, police, even tax officials. I've been hired to go into an office where people don't laugh, and my job is to make them laugh. And
As a
sometimes they're also
laughologist or as a
as
hypnotist?
a laughologist, and
Cool.
um, sometimes it's people that are strangers to each other, and I will I will point out this interesting thing. So you take a group of people in a circle, and they haven't done any laughing. Everybody's all serious, and we're just talking about what we're going to do. But yeah, I have people look at each other. Just look at the people in the room, and they're like, "Yeah, okay." Looking at the people in the room, then we all laugh, and then I have them look at the people again, and and I say, "What do those people look like to you now?" And they always say the same thing: friends. Friends. They look like friends. And this is not me being friendly, or what you're actually seeing is actually a psychological change. There's a saying that the people with whom we laugh are our friends, and our
Mm.
friends are people with whom we laugh. And so and that is true. If you think about your friends, especially your good friends, it's people that with whom you are easily laughing.
And
But
this
what's
is
interesting,
why I say be generous with your laughter, because it
right?
basically make more friends easily.
That's right. It's also a secret to being charming and charismatic is to
It's
be
rapport.
is rapport and laughing more. Absolutely. And I can actually give you exact tips because people ask me this because I think you're right that average people when they hear this are like I don't want to just start laughing. Excuse me. I don't want to start laughing like that like a lunatic. There's a few interesting reasons why. One, one of the ways that we determine authenticity is through laughter. And everybody has a kind of like fake laughter police in their head. Meaning, so for example, if I told a joke and you went ah like that, I would be like, because I it's so maybe so obviously fake. Now, part of the answer to that is that it's okay to do a little bit. So it's okay to fake a little, but it's also letting go of that idea that if laughter sounds a little bit forced, then I'm going to get upset. That's a pointless rule in your life. If people, and you also start to notice, as you point out, and I think women are often in this experience where they're forcing laughter to laugh at your jokes. They're doing you kind of a favor. You shouldn't go and go, wait a second, was that laugh entirely authentic? you know so part of it is letting go of this kind of rule that laughter must be 1,000% authentic. It doesn't have to be.
You
Being
can fake
generous
it till
enough,
you make it.
fake you can
Um,
fake it till you make it. Yeah.
you're inspiring me to want to be responsible with what I said because you're touching on something that's important. Sometimes, perhaps much too often, women are in a situation with a man and they have this fear response. And it is like a submissive, don't hurt me. She's laughing at my joke. She must like me. And the woman's like, oh my God, I'm so creeped out. How do I get this guy away from me? I'm not the type of, you know what, get the fuck away from me, guy. I'm just a soft woman. I don't know what to do. Let me just that is not be generous with your laughter. I want to be very clear. It's having the gravitas of a lot of young women need to be empowered to have this kind of gravitas. There's nobody being right or wrong. There's just a lack of education and support and empowerment. So if you tend to be the type of woman who is just submissive and uncertain, you're still beautiful and lovely and there's nothing wrong with you, but we need to do some empowerment work so that you don't have an inauthentic laugh response that makes a man think, oh, she's into this. Like you want to have more of a either, hey, I'm really creeped out and now it's time for me to go. You don't need to laugh at every guy's bad joke. Of course not. That's due diligence number one. But what I'm speaking of is at really a much higher level, which is completely diffusing that energy that I don't want, that I'm not receptive to from that man, and turning it into friends. It is a higher level operation, and I'll give you an exaggerated but very real world example. This is a true story. I lived in New York City when I was in my early 20s. That's when I was my hottest, I'm like in
What do
New
you mean?
York.
What do you mean when you're at your hottest?
There's a lot of
Yeah,
catcalling going on at this
yeah.
time in my life. Um, and one day I was walking down the street and some man, I don't know what came over me that this was what came out of my mouth, but some man said something to me like, hey baby, how you doing? And I said, well, top of the morning to you, sir. And he
I
just
like that. That's funny.
he immediately started laughing. What the fuck was
Yeah.
that? And he responded like that to me. I responded by laughing back to him, and that we didn't linger. It broke up. But that instant thing, human to human, what just happened here, it was friends. It was friendly. It was funny. It was non-serious. It was non-threatening. I wasn't like, don't talk to me like that. It was just having the power to say, I'm going to determine the relationship here is going to be one of open-hearted friendship. Now, if you're a creepy fucking weirdo and you can't even receive that, then I'm going to determine the relationship here is nothing. And you're going to go away now. But most men don't need that level of severity. Most humans don't. If you're generous with your kindness and you're generous with your laughter and your friendliness and your open heartedness, most people have the internal intelligence to get to, okay, it's a vibe shift. She's not into me, but she's a nice person. I could wish her well and she wishes me well, and off we go. And that's much better for what we want the world that we live in to look like and feel like.
There is like also there's an exercise here that I think is very simple. Meaning, if you're asking how to be more generous with your laughter, one of the tricks is simply people do say funny things. People do funny things, and what you can do is you can just go with it. Meaning, I might normally, you said something funny, I might like laugh kind of politely, but this time because I know I'm trying to be a bigger laugher, I'm going to go with it more and laugh really hard. And that's really what happened to me. Like when people, I've worked as a laughologist for decades, and people used to say to me, like, it is true that there's some people in my family. I grew up with people who were great laughers, but I didn't think of myself being any more laughy than anybody else. I don't think people who know me would say, they probably thought I had a good sense of humor, but they didn't say, oh, he's a real laughy guy. I think it was quite fairly average. But when I became a laughologist and it was kind of my profession, then this is exactly what I did. I would just be, when it was a chance to laugh, I would just go for it. I would laugh my ass off. And probably some people thought, like, why is that guy laughing so hard? But but it's
I'm
stopping that after.
metabolizing cortisol over
Yeah,
here.
don't mind me. I'm over here metabolizing cortisol, you know. Yeah. I think that by creating a more laughy, part of our job is to create a more laughy world. And it is also within, I would say, within hypnotherapy as well. By definition, like when you ask, like, what is the point of healing? The point of healing sometimes is to get to joy, because we are joyful creatures. When we people people don't look at their photographs and go, "Oh, here's me staring at the ground. What a great moment." You know, they go, "Here's us laughing at the bar or whatever it is." That's what we remember. Um,
Mm.
and so we
Now,
remember. Sorry, go ahead.
this is a really interesting thought you just provoked in my mind. Smiling in photos. This is a cultural phenomenon. We all do it, but in the past, it was the opposite. In like when the early ages of photography, every photo is just people like,
Now,
so what's up there? Yeah.
there's an interesting dispute, because I think part of it was that when the first photographic equipment arrived, you had to stay still. And so if you moved your face, it would create a distortion, like the photo wouldn't come out right. So people were taught, but I think we're taught like just stay still, and they chose these austere non-smiling expressions. But there's something actually really interesting here that I'm going to mention because I did years of like I did two documentaries roughly about laughter, Laughology and You Are What You Act. And first I was amazed that this is something that genuinely is not researched. There are like individual scientists, University College London is a big one. They do studies on laughter, but generally speaking, there's not a lot of studies on it, especially even about the therapeutic value, which you would think would be a bigger deal. But like I'll give you like a really strange example. So what you're describing is fascinating. Why it does seem like in the 19th century we were much more serious and we've become more cheerful. And you know who is really big in that way? Americans.
Yes.
Americans are a particularly cheerful people, and it's actually not new. People don't know that. They think, well, maybe we were always cheerful. No, it was fabricated. I can tell you the story. It's intriguing. So de Tocqueville, the famous French author, traveled through the U.S. I think in the 1880s. I'm probably guessing, but he would describe, because he's French, he described like what Americans were like, and he'd say like they're the most severe, cranky, grumpy people. Americans were very like hardworking, industrious. They're like the people in the photographs you described, never smiled. You didn't see them laughing very much, because it was like maybe pioneer life, and it was a culture that was very obsessed with work and probably colonizing America. Apparently, what happened is in around the turn of the century, there was mass immigration both to the US and Canada. And one of the problems was in the factories, particularly on the East Coast, New York, Boston, these big cities, they would be filled up with immigrants who didn't speak the same language. Italians, Jews, Portuguese, Greeks, all packed in to these massive factories, and they often couldn't communicate. And the factory owners apparently made these observations that there would be a lot of strife in these crowded factories. People would fight, there'd be riots, and it was a big problem. And so they deliberately cultured a public culture of cheerfulness. And that you see that in these sort of classic pictures of Coca-Cola, where people are smiling and laughing. And this was done to actually allow this mass immigrant population to get along. And they found a secondary effect. When people were more smiley and more laughy, they just got along better, even though they didn't speak the same language.
Go figure.
And then it extended into public expressions of culture. So you then get the big football game, which is probably later, 30, 40 years later, where you have the pep rally, where people literally are practicing these cheerful expressions, cheering, smiling, laughing, and
Rallying pep.
right, literally rallying pep. And Americans become really good at it. They
Yeah.
become,
Yeah, we do.
and now Americans, and I think it is a beautiful thing. Some people, like the Europeans, would often criticize. They would go to America and they'd be like, they're always showing off their teeth. They'd be like, why are they smiling so big? And but you had this sort of collision of like healthy Americans who have dentists, and smiling and laughing.
Yeah.
As a result,
I
sorry,
I'm
I'm just
sorry.
going to finish one last
Yeah.
thing. So as a result, Americans, so this concept of public cheerfulness is actually a kind of uniquely American phenomenon. I think there are other places where people are known to be cheerful, but it's particularly a North American phenomena. And it's probably a good thing, weirdly enough. Sometimes people come from other cultures and they resent it. They're like, "Why is everybody?" But the truth is, and I find this day as I'm Canadian, and when I go to America, I find people more friendly and cheerful, and I like
Hmm.
it. It's a good thing.
Interesting. Where in America are you visiting that gives you specifically
I
that
mean,
gives
all
you
over, I would say, but particularly
because
like
there's a
places like
lot of diversity culturally
yeah,
within the United
yeah.
States, like New
And
England,
these days,
Texas.
Americans are stressed, but yeah,
Sure. Well, this is the point that I'm feel now set up to make. I love that you're saying this cheerfulness, but not just cheerfulness. That's a word I might dispute, but that we're loud people. We're loud with our laughter. We like being funny. We like being in your face. Or like, look at me, haha! I'm here. Like I'm on the subway. Like I'm rapping and banging on a bucket. Like we're just like we're here. We're here. We're here. We have, as Americans, and I'm speaking to my fellow Americans, laughter is a form of resistance. We are having a revolution against the tyranny that it keeps trying to impose on us. No, I am not going to live like I'm in Soviet Russia and just be all depressed and like scared of the world and shut off and I'm not looking. No, I'm going to show up in the streets and still be laughing. Did you see this? Actually, this is perfect. Portland, the resistance in Portland to, there's a presence of it's it's
Of
very
the National
very
Guard. Yeah, I see.
it's very sad and scary what the federal government is doing in Portland. But the people of Portland are protesting and resisting, and one of the dominant ways that they're doing it is by wearing inflatable costumes.
Yeah, I know. Halloween
And
came early. Yeah.
Halloween came early, but it's specifically these, like, they're larger than even a human form. They're inflatable, they're colorful. There's like dinosaurs and frogs hopping around, and it's exactly this message. It's, you're not even gonna paint us as we're like these warfaring. No, we're in friggin' bunny rabbit suits, peacefully saying, fuck your authoritarianism. We're happy people. We're cheerful people. We're out here laughing in your face as you try to destroy our culture, and you're doing some damage. But our resistance is going to win, and we're going to do it by being cheerful, by laughing in your face, by laughing amongst ourselves, and by using that laughter, right? What is laughter? Energizing. When I'm serious, am I motivated? Maybe from within, like, I got to prove to my parents that I could earn $1 million a year. Maybe there's something like that going on in the serious, hardened person, that they're motivated. But to feel like inspired comes from being energized, and laughing and being joyful gives you the energy to go out and fight another day in the dark ages that are descending upon us internationally. And like, we do it with a smile on our faces because it's our duty and it's who we are as a people.
Yeah. Yes. I agree with you. It's something, it's very inspiring. The only thing is that it sort of made me feel like what do you wear in Halloween, given that you're competing with all these amazing, outrageous costumes.
There's no
But
competition. There's only joining and
yeah.
togetherness.
Yeah, I agree. It is really a very it's a very interesting phenomenon. It's back to our story of the mammals versus the reptiles, the warm-blooded, fun-loving mammals against the cold, calculating, fear-inducing reptiles, and it's we're still there. That war continues, and some people have made the parallel too between it's a life cult versus a death cult. The life cult just wants to live and be fun, have fun, and enjoy being here, and there's a death cult that has other plans for you, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Bringing it back to the warm-blooded, playful mammals versus the cold-blooded, dead-eyed reptiles, it really shines a light on what is going on Earth right now. This is an insane world. How do you stay sane? Keep finding the humor, laugh your way through it. Use that. It's not escaping through, oh, I'm just going to laugh and therefore I'm disrespecting the serious nature of what's going on. No, I'm resisting the serious nature of what's going on by persisting in my joy, and therefore making a bigger impact when I take action that is methodical and actually, following a script of, we can't just sit in our houses laughing and being like, haha, everything will be fine in politics. No, you need to go vote. You need to show up to your, town halls, whatever it might be. But doing it with a more enlivened spirit. The spirit is what will win. It's the frequency, the vibration, it's the energy that's going to come first. Yes, it actually is. So choose to use your heart, to use your health, to create more heart, more health, more joy. That will win the war.
I love it. I was going to say this is a bit heavy, but I don't know if I mentioned this before, but there's a famous photograph that is already always fascinated me. It's a photograph of a Russian soldier during the famous, or not famous, but the wars between Finland and Russia, which were quite awful wars. And so the photograph is a Russian soldier who's been caught by the Finns behind the lines. And because it's whenever it is, that's it's death penalty. They're just going to execute him. And so the photograph is of maybe a couple soldiers, Finnish soldiers, um, put this revolver to this guy's head, and it's it's not explained, but you can figure it out. The guy kind of realizes like that's it. This is where I die. And what does he do? He fucking laughs his ass off. He laughs so hard, and the photograph shows it. And then he gets shot. But there's three photographs, I think. So one is him like, oh, they're pointing the gun at him. He kind of realizes like this is it. Then the next shot is him like, well, what am I supposed to do? And then the next one is him dead on the ground.
Oh
Now,
my God.
what's sad about it, it's an amazing thing. What's sad about it is, yeah, well, the guy died, but I'm talking about him right now. Is anybody else talking about some the soldiers from the Russian-Finnish War? I'm remembering him right now. That there's something to that guy's spirit that was kind of amazing. I don't know who he is. Maybe, I mean, who knows who he was, but there's something beautiful right there. And he's being remembered forever as the guy who laughed in the face of death. And I'm not saying that we all have to do this, but I was struck by when I was shooting this documentary, Laughology. I had a very weird experience where I was sent to India, to Mumbai, to interview the guy who was the founder of laughter yoga, Madan Kataria. And by pure chance, literally while we're in the air, the Mumbai massacre began to take place. It was called India's 9/11, where basically I think 11 or 12 Islamic terrorists arrive in India and just start shooting people on the street. Like they arrive with machine guns and they killed over 120 people. And by coincidence, they went to the hotel where Madan Kataria normally goes. And they killed everybody or killed the people they saw in the hotel. And Madan Kataria realized if I had gone, I would have probably died. And so I said to him, you're Madan Kataria, the guy who invented laughter yoga. If you were there and they were coming around the corner and there's these guys with machine guns shooting everybody, what would you do? And he would do, yep. If I remembered to do it, I would just start laughing. Because yeah, you might as well go laughing.
All right, Albert, let's make a pact that when we die, the last thing we do as death sweeps through our bodies and our hearts stop and our brains cease to run with electrical current, we will choose laughter for the end.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
High five you.
Yes. Love it. Yeah, totally. Maybe that's a good place to, yeah.
It feels on brand for both of us, frankly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Laugh in the face of death and laugh all the way through life.
Yeah, as much as you can.
It'll keep you sane.
Yeah, it'll keep you sane because we're the Staying Sane podcast. So yeah, our tip for the day is try to laugh when you can, laugh generously, exercise your laughter if you can, but just pointing, the humor and, and don't be afraid to laugh at yourself if you can. I do it regularly. I have lots of material.
Same. Honestly, it does keep me sane.
Yeah.
It's something we've all heard people say, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. It's like, when that's true, laugh.
Right. You still can. All right.
So we are Cassandra and Albert, and we do this podcast once a week. Be sure that you are subscribed so you can catch us next time. If you'd like to experience how we work professionally, to run a private session, or even to have a consultation, I do offer consultations. You can find me at McLeanHypnotherapy.com. I'm Cassandra McLean. And Albert, where will our guests find you?
Easiest place to find me is just at my hypnosis website is hypnologist.net. And in fact, if you're interested in more of the laughter angle, I have another website, laughologist.info, I think it is. And that's where World Laughing Championship, all kinds of other laughing exercises and laughter movies. You can see Laughology for free. If you go to YouTube and you Google Laughology, the whole movie is there for free, and you can get a whole bunch of laughter research.
And you should do that right now. You should go watch
right now.
Documentaries. They're very good.